Good afternoon, my name is Casey Erickson. This is going to be my presentation for my reflexive narrative for HS 713, Aging, Illness, and the Continuum of Care. This class is taught by Dr. Michael Lee. This presentation is recorded April 29th, 2018. This is just a note for the instructor. This will be my second time doing this presentation. I did the first one with a video of myself as well in the Coutura app, the Google extension for a desktop computer that uses the screencast as well, which you have access to both in the Google Drive here that you can see. But please note, Dr. Lee, that the one with the video of my face in the presentation, the sound quality is terrible and you will not be able to understand the words. So please use this presentation where you can actually hear my voice talking for the content of the assignment. Thank you. Okay, so getting started on the reflexive narrative, I'm going to be discussing more of a assignment reflection over the last 8 weeks, going over some of our discussion topics. We talked about the aging and interview assignment, the person-centered care plan assignment, and medical terminology assignments. To kind of go over our discussion topics that really kind of stuck with me and resonated throughout this last 8 weeks. Back in the beginning, we talked a little bit about the STD prevalence amongst the aging population. I think this really resonated with me because I was not aware of the prevalence of the lack of awareness that the aging population has. And I remember reading some articles about how this is the reason why aging populations aren't going through this is because of the physicians are focusing their time spent on their physical health and not just their sexual health. So I felt like that really resonated with me. We also discussed back in the beginning of the class on culture and diversity. I remember reading, or actually watching a video called Life Part 2, I think it was week 2 or 3, on culture and diversity and how that can affect how people are placed in long-term care settings. So people from other cultures rely more on those informal caregivers such as loved ones and family members to provide that support because they know their cultural expectations, such as the food they eat, the language they speak, different practices they follow in their culture. And so transitioning into a long-term care facility, there are implications on culture and diversity as well. So that really resonated with me as well. So the reference for that is that Life Part 2 video that we watched early on in the class. Throughout the class, in our discussions, we also talked a lot about definitions of terms, including respite care, adult daycare, guardianship, conservatorship, adult maltreatment, things like that. And some things that really resonated with me, well, we also talked about informal caregiving and formal caregiving. The formal caregiving being that of a paid caregiver, informal being that of a loved one or a family friend or a friend, community person, somebody that is not in a paid role. Respite care is something that really resonated with me because it's a very needed and necessary service for our informal caregivers to have a break, and for the people who have the disability to be able to go into a temporary respite care place where the informal caregivers can have a break. Some other things that we discussed over the last 8 weeks include eco-mapping, person-centeredness, end-of-life and right to die, and self-actualization. I'm not going to touch on all of these just for the sake of time, but one other one that I think is really important to take away from this course is the person-centeredness. In the last few years, Minnesota has really been focusing on the person-centered care plans for all types of different providers and service models, including group homes, day programs, long-term care centers, nursing homes, memory care, anything that has to do with taking care of adults with disabilities or vulnerable adults. We use the person-centered approach with that. And so that involves making person-centered plans and making sure that the services that the providers provide are geared towards the needs of the individual or the preferences of the individual, and moving away from what the organization needs. So we did a lot of discussions, which I learned a lot. Some of the other assignments we did included the aging interview assignment, where we got to interview somebody who was aging with or without a disability, and kind of learn about the different perspectives and learn about the resources, and then create a person-centered plan, an eco map about what kind of resources give and take with the aging population. And so I chose to do that on a aging female who has macular degeneration, otherwise called Stargardt's disease. And this person was very close to me in my personal life as well. So I was able to kind of get some information on how she grew up, what resources she had available to her, what it's like to just age even without a disability, and what kind of important resources she has just as a support for her aging. So we learned that she was very involved in foster care, animal foster care, animal rescue. She was very involved in her faith and her church and her community. She was married. She has children, grandchildren. And so we learned a lot about the different support structures they have. We also did a person care plan assignment since the person that I was scheduled to do this with is no longer in the class. I ended up doing this assignment by myself and creating a person-centered care plan for myself. I thought that was really valuable as well. Being able to create kind of my goals and do a SWOT analysis as well. Medical terminology, we did a lot on medical terminology this last 8 weeks, and I think that it was very important to understand the clinical concepts of continuum of care and aging. It's going to be a very valuable asset that I have going forward as I start my nursing home administrator position, should I get one. Okay, now I want to go over a little bit of a SWOT analysis of kind of everything we've talked about. So, and about myself, and as I kind of grow into the field here. Strengths: professionalism, communication, ability to remain calm, and high emotional intelligence. I apologize, I spelled the word intelligence wrong. Professionalism, I've been told I have very high professionalism in the work experience that I do, and the communication style that I have in my field as an operational program director for adults with disabilities. I manage many different group homes, long-term care facilities that are group homes in the community that serve anywhere between 4 and 6 individuals apiece. And I also manage apartment programs, and so it's kind of like our independent housing options as well. And so there is a lot of different things that can be very stressful in my work. And so my ability to remain calm and think on my feet and play that three-dimensional chess of decision-making and staffing needs in the programs, I think is definitely a strength of mine. And also my emotional intelligence, keeping very objectiveness and keeping to the facts of my work and keeping emotion to the side. Weaknesses, definitely time management and my poor scope of work experience. Growing into more of a nursing home administrator job and gaining that experience. Right now I just have group home and human services experience. I have the educational piece of healthcare administration, but I don't have that work component yet. And so I think that's a weakness that I have. And managing my time, I think because I do a lot at my work. I cover different programs for people. I do a lot of teaching and instructing in our main office for new hires and for new leadership coming in. I'm also a mentor for new leadership as they come in as well. And so what I often do, and what's a weakness to me, is that I'm always focusing on other people's work instead of keeping up on my own. And so some things kind of my own tasks get pushed off to the side. Opportunities, continue education with my MA, my Master's of Arts that I'm graduating here in August with. That's definitely an opportunity, expanding my scope of work experience, so I definitely hope to be able to get out in the community and start working with nursing homes and getting some experience with my practicum, internship, and my licensure, which I hope to do over the summer and into the fall. And then growing field of care. I think that because, the aging population is going to be growing and growing and growing. I mean, there's never going to be a shortage of that. And you can't replace a caregiver with a robot or technology. You can certainly bring in technology to support caregivers, but you can't replace the caregiver themselves. And so there's always that opportunity for different positions going forward. It's definitely not going to be an obsolete position at all in the future. Threats and blind spots, definitely a limited knowledge of clinical care. As I kind of went back to my poor scope of work experience, that's a threat to me and it's a blind spot because I might not even recognize that I might not know all of the clinical aspects of the job. Medical terminology can only teach so much, and so I can only get that by growing my experience as I kind of grow into that experience as well. So that's my SWOT analysis of this course and this reflexive narrative. My action plan for going forward is definitely going to be continuing my work experience in healthcare, volunteering and getting involved. One thing I'd like to do also is reflective journaling on experience in education, being able to continue on, gaining some experience and continuing my education going forward. Being able to keep a reflective journal on that and kind of the experiences that I have, I think will be valuable to me as well. Ongoing continued education and lifelong learning. I do hope to be able to attend law school soon. I'm hoping to start maybe this fall, or I might take a year off and gain some experience before I do it. But I also want to work on continuing education in law to be able to help push forward some needed policies and funding changes in long-term care and human services. And so I want to be able to go to finish law school and focus on health and human services law and policy making. And then start planning an aging care plan for myself. And so I think by doing the person-centered care plan during this course, I think that was really a stepping stone for me to be able to start thinking about what kind of goals I have in life and how I'm going to successfully meet those goals as I start to age. We also talked, I know it's not on the slide here, but self-actualization. Carl Rogers, in the last couple of weeks of our class, we were able to read on some of his material on self-actualization, and that self-actualization and aging is more of a fluid process, and it's not a product. It's not a static product that we are a part of. We're always changing, and the way that we view ourselves, we can meet our dreams and our needs as long as we have the understanding that things are fluid and things are ever moving. And so I really resonated with that too, and that's going to become valuable to me as I move forward. So here are my resources and references that I talked about throughout the presentation today. Life Part 2, the PBS series we discussed earlier on, that was regarding the culture and diversity. Sexual health discussions with older adults, patients, during periodic health exams. That was something that we discussed back in the early weeks as well, about STD prevalence and the lack of information given to the older adults. That was back in the beginning of the class. And then should older people be protected from bad choices? And so that's kind of where we got some of those definitions on guardianship, conservatorship, maltreatment, and those kind of things. And then what it means to be a person. That was Carl Rogers, and the information I talked about self-actualization being more of a process more than a product. And then Choosing to Die, the video that we watched in week 8 was also very resonating with me, and I'd like to keep that as a resource and reference as I go forward. So thank you for watching this presentation. I really enjoyed the class, Dr. Michael Lee. This was very valuable to me. As I start to graduate here in the next couple months, I will be taking this information into my next adventure. So thank you very much.